Professor Takliad, and I'm the Associate Director of Tech and Engineering Employer Engagement at the UC San Diego Career Center, which means I talk to recruiters and hiring managers every day about what they're looking for in applicants. I've been working in career services for about 8 years now at universities such as USC, UC Berkeley, and now, of course, UCSD. Before I begin, I recommend bringing up a blank Word document or a good old-fashioned pen and paper for a few quick exercises I have throughout this webinar. So let's get started. Before we get to the nuts and bolts of the resume, one of the most important things to first consider is what kind of roles you're seeking and what skills employers are looking for. If you aren't quite sure to where to start, that's okay. And I recommend browsing alumni profiles and seeing what alumni are up to who graduated from your particular major, and I'll get back to this in just a minute. Say you do have a sense as to the kinds of positions you might consider. Then the next step is learning more so that you can optimize your resume for something called ATS, or applicant tracking systems, which the vast majority, somewhere between 75 to 95% of medium to large companies use in order to screen applicants. See, the thing is that recruiters don't look at thousands of resumes, but rather hundreds or less. The systems use resume keywords such as job titles, hard skills, or qualifications to filter through job seekers. Even if an applicant is highly qualified for a role, if they don't have the right search terms on their resume, then they may not be found. How do you make sure that you're including the right jargon on your resume in order to make it past these screens? One thing you can do is check out LinkedIn profiles. So LinkedIn is the world's largest professional networking site, and over 95% of recruiters actually use it to find candidates. There's also more than 500 million people on LinkedIn. It's really remarkable. Simply search for professionals in roles you're interested in and check out their keywords and skills. Here's an example of a profile from a mechanical engineer. In order to get past ATS, it's important to include those same keywords, such as SolidWorks or AutoCAD. Don't have much experience in project management? That's okay. You're in school to learn. It's also okay to list some of the skills under a hobbies or an interest section. Then make sure to do some research so that you're able to speak about them during an interview. Not quite sure what people are up to who graduated from your major? Or want to know the range of options available to graduates from your area? Take this step. So this is how you can find alumni on LinkedIn. First, go to the top of LinkedIn and search for UCSD. Next, scroll down and click on alumni. Notice that there's close to 190,000 profiles. Search by major. Here I selected bioengineering, but you can also look for job titles, keywords, industry, or company. You can also change your search criteria to select end year of 2010, for example, if you're only interested in reviewing profiles of people who graduated from 10 years ago. These might be a little bit more senior. Interested in seeing what recent grads are doing? Change your search criteria to end year of 2018 or 2019. Take note of strong profiles and make sure to use as many keywords as you can from the professionals working in your area of interest. When you scroll down, you can view the profiles of different alumni. Take note, which industries are people working in? What kind of companies or graduate programs seem to keep coming up? See a very experienced alumnus with an awesome looking job? Review where they worked when they graduated from school and which types of positions they had before their current one. You might even consider reaching out and seeing if they'd be open to chatting with you about their career path. People tend to love talking about themselves and how they got to where they are. Another wonderful website to learn what kind of keywords and skills to include in your resume is a free government site called onetonline.org. Simply perform a quick search in the upper right-hand corner for your desired occupation and learn a ton about tasks, skills, wages, employment information, and even alternate job titles. The alternate job titles can be especially useful as a search terms on job search sites such as Handshake or Indeed.com. So for this report for mechanical engineers, some different kinds of job titles like process engineer, product engineer can be helpful. According to the National Association of Colleges and Employers, or NACE, career readiness is the attainment and demonstration of requisite competencies that broadly prepare college graduates for a successful transition into the workforce. Okay, so what does that mean? Across the board, employers value the following 12 competencies or skills. Our goal at UC San Diego is for all students to develop these competencies throughout their time here. However, some competencies are more valued by certain employers than others. For instance, if you're looking for a position at a nonprofit, then I would hope that you have experience with civic engagement and an aptitude for social responsibility. If, on the other hand, you're applying for research assistant positions, then research ability and critical thinking or problem solving skills are highly sought after. I want you to consider which of these competencies are most needed for your future career plans, or if you're not sure what you want to do, which skills might be needed or skills that you enjoy doing, as well as which 3 competencies you'd like to highlight to an employer. Lastly, I'd like you to think about a time in which you've demonstrated these skills or competencies, and I'll give you a minute to write down your answers. All right. In addition to matching competencies, the job description is a powerful tool that should be well utilized when sending in your resume. Your resume should be created with a specific job description in mind. I'll repeat that again because it's really important. Your resume should be created with a specific job description in mind. On the left of this slide is a required skills and qualifications section for an entry-level systems engineer job description. On the right are the transferable skills and knowledge that align to the job description. If the position calls for a bachelor's degree in engineering and a 3.0 plus in the major, then as the job seeker, I would make sure to highlight my relevant coursework as well as GPA. Next, they require an applicant to participate in analyzing customer needs. But say you've never worked as a systems engineer before, that's okay. You still probably work with customers in a retail work environment or perhaps at your on-campus work study position. Don't underestimate the skills you've gained from your part-time and volunteer experience as well. The position requires someone familiar with statistical tools. Maybe you haven't used statistical tools on a job per se, but you took a few stats classes. These should be on your resume, and so on and so forth. The key is going line by line in the job description and matching the qualifications as best you can to your resume. Sure, it takes more work and a little more time, but it'll enhance your callback rate so you don't get stuck in that black hole of resumes. All right. Once you have a solid understanding of the skills and abilities needed for the particular position you're interested in, and have considered your own competencies, you might wonder, how do I represent my skills in a way that catches an employer's attention? Here's a sample resume with different sections, including summary, education, experiences, and then honors and awards. These sections can be moved around based on what's most important for the position you're seeking. However, the general outline for a technical resume is header, summary of qualifications, education, skills, experience, projects, and leadership experience. And I'll get to all these sections a little bit more thoroughly in a minute. Recruiters typically only spend about 6 seconds or less reviewing a resume. What are they looking for? They want to see one typed page, a traditional font size, or traditional font like Arial or Times New Roman, a clean and well-organized page, and each experience under each section in reverse chronological order. If you have an older experience you'd like to highlight closer to the top of your resume, you might consider creating a new section for it. You want your contact information to be easily accessible so that recruiters can get in touch with you right away. Include your name at the top. If you're an international student, then you may include your English or American name in quotes. Add an address or city, such as San Diego, California. Recruiters want to know if you'll require relocation for the opportunity. A solid, reliable phone number with a voicemail box that is not full. I've accidentally had that before. Email with an appropriate email address, such as your UCSD email or a Gmail address. A link to your GitHub. If you have one with public projects, it's not really going to help you out if all of your projects are hidden. Or LinkedIn. Savvy students start working on their personal brand and building connections early on. Remember that your classmates now may be your colleagues in the future. Something that I don't see all that often, but I think can be very helpful, is a summary section. Candidates who include a summary are about 2 times as likely to be contacted by a hiring manager. Include the job you're seeking and experience level and highlight achievements and important skills. Here's an example. Honors student graduating from UC San Diego's Computer Science and Engineering program seeking entry-level computer programmer position. Consistently commended by professors and internship supervisor at Viasat for programming abilities, grasp of multiple technologies, and attention to detail. Strong knowledge of object-oriented programming and application development tools, and then list the skills. Known as a self-starter, team player, and multitasker as the treasure of women in computing. Now, from your perspective, I encourage you to take a moment to write down a few bullet points with achievements, skills, competencies, or highlights. What do you want an employer to know about you and your background right away? I'll give you a minute. In your education section, it's important to include the name of your degree, such as Bachelor of Science in Bioengineering. You don't want to just write major in bioengineering. Your GPA, if it's above a 3.0, and you can just include your major GPA if that helps, and your anticipated graduation date. Employers are not interested in when you started college, but they do want to know when you will be available to start working full time and how far along you are in your. Now on to skills. For technical positions, usually this is included below your education section. Here's an example divided by level of proficiency. You can also divide these sections by technical skills, language skills, and leadership skills, for instance. The experience section of the resume is an extremely broad section. But remember, you can customize it. For instance, you can relabel it research experience or mechanical engineering experience. Employers want to see evidence of both your technical skills as well as soft skills in this section. Additionally, campus involvement in student organizations should be highlighted. I've also heard from employers that they especially love seeing out-of-class projects or projects that started in a classroom and were continued later, as this shows dedication and commitment to an area. Now it's time for a little activity. How would you like to represent your resume? Which headers would you like to include? What do you put under each experience? It's critical to add the job title or position. Make sure it's descriptive instead of something like summer intern. Add electrical engineering intern instead, for instance. Include the company, location, as well as the duration of employment. Include both months as well as years. Then each experience should contain about 3 to 5 bullet points, which point out skills you've gained that are relevant to the industry you're interested in. For instance, support 15 portfolio and trading administrators with processing more than 200 daily security transactions, resulting in increased productivity. Your resume should read like a list of results and accomplishments as opposed to a job description. How can you do this? You need to include numbers. For instance, here is a basic or snoozer bullet point. Fixed links on website. What's that leaving out? I have no idea of the scope of the project or what happened as a result. Here's a much improved version. Improve the core website functionality by fixing broken links and scripting errors, which lowered the page abandonment rate by 25%. The key is showing that you didn't just come to work, you made a difference. Another way of thinking about this is what wouldn't have happened if you hadn't have been there? Now it's your turn. What's a quantifiable result or accomplishment you'd want an employer to know about? Please take a minute to write it down and ask yourself, where can you strategically place this on your resume? Another way to create a standout resume is to use strong action verbs centered around a particular area, such as collected and evaluated for research skills. These can be found under the resume section of the Trident Guide or online if you type action verbs for resumes. I'll also show you some more examples at the next slide. I suggest pulling up one of these resources and writing down which section or sections might be most relevant for the positions for which you're interested in. Here are some different categories for action verbs. I especially love the section on demonstrating accomplishment. Achieved X, founded Y, spearheaded this project. Make sure to include that as well. How is your, make sure to emphasize your soft skills and your creative skills along with your technical abilities. If you're part of any student organization on campus, add it to your resume. And if you're a student leader, make sure to include that as well. How is your organization making an impact? What kind of skills are you learning? I know that for some students, it's really difficult to fit your resume onto one page, and for others, it may be challenging to find ways to fill the whole page. As a best practice, unless you're a graduate student or have multiple years of full-time work experience, a one-page resume is most commonly requested from employers. If you decide to include a two-page resume, then make sure that all the most important information is on the first page. An objective statement is not necessary and is basically a dated practice. Include a summary instead. Your font should be between 10 to 12 points for the body of your resume, and even 10 points can be a bit small. Keep your border spacing between 1/2 inch and 1 inch. You can customize your section headings in any way you'd like. So for instance, some students have a relevant coursework section or extracurricular activities and others don't. You can also customize your headings such as research experience or leadership experience. You do not need to specify between paid and unpaid experiences. Employers are more interested in what you've done than in whether you're paid or not. Also note that all capped words in Microsoft Office will not pass through spell check, so make sure that you double check your headings. Consider including your GPA if it's above a 3.0. You may also list your major GPA if it's higher. Please check for consistency all the way through, including spacing, bolding, periods, etc. There should be no personal pronouns on a resume, such as I or my. Same goes with the picture. Some employers will need to discard your resume if there's a picture on it to protect themselves from allegations of discrimination based on race, age, weight, gender, attractiveness, or personal style. With that said, feel free to include a professional photo on your LinkedIn account, just not on your resume. And then contact information. Please double or triple check your contact information to make sure it's correct and up to date. Use an email address that includes your name and not something informal like jennylovesparakeets@hotmail.com. Okay, going along with resumes, I thought I would just briefly touch on cover letters as well. So what's a cover letter? It's a letter expressing your interest in a particular position based on your skills and qualifications. Here are some pro tips. Make sure to use the same header on your cover letter as on your resume. This will make your application materials look like a complete package, like peanut butter and jelly. Include both parties' contact information. Your cover letter should be addressed to a specific individual if at all possible. Include the name of your employer and their address too. Tailor to fit a specific job description. Your cover letter, like your resume, should be written with a specific job description in mind. Make sure to draw upon the job description and mention why you'd be a good candidate based on your skills and experience to the posting. For instance, you can write, I see that the position calls for an individual who has experience working with large data sets. I've done XYZ. Address immediate needs of the employer. Please keep in mind that employers are typically not interested in how the position will help to further your professional development. Address how you can add value to the company. What are they working on and how are you committed to their mission? I recommend looking online and reviewing their mission statement and connecting that back to your own background and interests in your cover letter. Specify reasons for being interested. Always come back to your why. What's your purpose, cause, or belief? What do you feel passionate about? Is there an alignment? Which experiences have you had that can demonstrate your commitment? Provide examples of qualifications, but do not restate the entire resume. It's important to draw upon specific instances that show you'd be a good fit, but you don't want to repeat your resume line by line. Instead, elaborate on a specific example of something you're proud of. Here's a sample of what a cover letter looks like. Include your name and contact information at the top, then the date and address of a particular hiring manager if possible. If the hiring manager is unknown, then use Dear Hiring Manager instead of Dear Sir or Madam, which I sometimes see. The goal of the cover letter is to show your communication and persuasion skills. You're making the case that you're a good fit for a specific position based on your past experience. In the opening paragraph, state the position, how you found it, and create a thesis statement for why you want to work for that employer. Include 1 to 2 body paragraphs which display examples that relate directly to the job description. What's a meaningful experience you took part in, and how can you elaborate on it? Lastly, for the conclusion, briefly sum up your selling points, express your interest and appreciation. Sign it, and you're done. These are the basics of writing a cover letter. I think the hardest part is probably getting started. And actually, if you're submitting it online, you don't have to have a signature. You can just write your name. In the end, what's the goal of a resume? It's to get an interview. And unless you're Marissa Mayer or Mark Zuckerberg, it's impossible to convey your value in a sticky note. By now, you should have written down or considered which types of roles you're interested in and what skills are required, which competencies you'd like to highlight to an employer, and how you've demonstrated those competencies, and a result or an accomplishment you want to make sure employers know about. Now it's time for a Q&A. Please leave your questions below and I'll respond to them. For very specific questions, you may of course reach out to me individually. All of the associate directors at the Career Center have appointment availability on Handshake. And thanks for watching.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, I had a question. My question is regarding formatting for not the cover letter, but for the resume itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering if there's a resource I can go to that covers it for engineers, particularly electrical engineering.
What do you mean by formatting?
Well, I guess I can go back and watch this video again. I was about 2 minutes late. I don't know if you covered it, but really what it is the question is regarding like how it's set it up. I seen some of your pictures and there, I guess I could like mimic that formatting, and I did hear about the 1 to 2, a half to 1 inch on the borders and stuff. I guess is there like templates I can look at that
Oh,
would?
yes. Well, so if you email me, I'll leave my email here. I'd be
Okay.
happy to show you some examples from
Okay.
other engineers.
Okay.
MIT Career Services has a bunch of different examples that kind of comes to mind. I think one of the tricky things about resumes is that there's no one sort of right way to have a resume.
Oh, I
You
see.
know,
Yeah,
you're going to see them displayed differently.
I see.
And so sometimes the most common way is just, start at the top, you have the section headings, and then, it's one page. But then sometimes I see resumes that have 2 columns, for example.
Yeah.
So there's different ways of representing your experience. But in
I,
the end, what it kind of comes back to is just touching on those skills and keywords that are most relevant to the job description.
I see. I
But
follow.
here, let me leave my, how do I do this?
You
Maybe
can
leave
Oh,
it on
this
the
is
top.
different than the Zoom meeting. I don't know how to
It is.
leave my
Try,
email.
try to click on a chat and put it in there, and everyone will see it. Yeah.
And then we do have a question in the Q&A. It says here, some sources say it's better to have a more attractive resume format than just a typed Word file. Which do you think is better?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think the thing that I hear from recruiters is that when they see one of the templates that is available online, they see a million resumes with the exact same template. And so it doesn't necessarily stand out in a better way than having a typed Word file. Now, there are industries such as graphic design where it's really important to have an aesthetically pleasing resume. For engineering, it's usually, just a black and white 1-page Word document. It doesn't have to be really fancy in terms of having, I mean, if you look at any graphic design resumes, they look really different. You might have examples of your work on there or something, but for engineering, it's usually the skills and the keywords that matter the most. Oh, I did want to mention one other thing, which is that if you have a resume that is formatted in such a way where there's blocks, it doesn't always get picked up by certain applicant tracking systems. They're getting better, and more of them do pick up on the skills and keywords, but sometimes if it is displayed in certain ways, then the system isn't actually able to pick up on it. Okay, if there's not any other questions, I will leave my email here. Feel free to reach out to me. I also have Handshake availability on Thursday, and there's some more appointments available. I'm happy to talk to you about your job search, internship search, I know what I'm hearing from employers about, what's going on due to COVID-19. So happy to chat more.
Great, thank you so much for presenting, Lee. I'm gonna go ahead and end this webinar. As you all heard, Lee is available. Her email is included in the chat. This webinar will also be posted online at some point. Okay, thank you so much. Bye, Lee.
Bye.